The chairperson of the National Commission for Women, Lalita Kumaramangalam, has advocated that sex work to be regulated and the trade and ensure that better living conditions for women, those who are engaged in commercial sex work. Legalizing the trade, she said, that it will also bring down trafficking in women and lower the incidence of HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases. The NCW chief also said that legalizing would cover various aspects from working hours to remuneration and health care of sex workers to education and economic alternatives for their families. There is a need to offer employment alternatives to the women in the sex trade, she further said. But activists disagree with this whole idea. They feel that legalization of prostitution will only embolden the traffickers. So what's the way forward? Should sex trade be legalized in India? This is what I'm asking today. Welcome to Gender Discourse. I'm Lotty, Alaric. Well, this is an interview given by Lalita Kumaramangalam in one of the national dailies, The Hindu. But in spite of our repeated efforts, no one from the NCW really agreed to come for a discussion on this subject today. But we'll be definitely taking this forward. So I have a panel of guests with me today. And I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Bijay Lakshmi Nanda, who's a feminist activist. So thank you so much for joining us. And we're also joined by the noted advocate Nandita Rao. So welcome to the show, Nandita. And I'm also very glad that we have a representative of the Shakti Vahini, an activist from there. He's Mr. Rishi Kant. I welcome you too. So Bijay, as a feminist activist, and as this issue we know that we've been grappling with for a number of years now. So when a statement like this comes from a chief, say from the NCW, to legalize this profession in the country, what sort of a message is really going across?
I think the first thing to note is that sex trade is not illegal in India.
Correct.
And there are a lot of activities which are considered illegal, and that yes. means running a brothel or pimping and the rest of it, which is organized sex trade. So I think if the chairperson of the NCW is actually talking about organized sex trade, then we have to be very careful. Are we really talking about the women here? Is it about women's rights that we are discussing here? So if you are talking about women having rights over their body and having the right to exercise their own choice when it comes to how they use their body, I think that there has to be some understanding on how these choices are made. I think it has to come in through a number of consultations, and some of those consultations should include a number of women who are in sex work. So just talking about legalizing sex trade when it is already legal in so many ways, because just legalizing the pimps or the organized brothels, I think that would be a problem, and it needs far more concerted efforts and consultations than to just go ahead and legalize it, because I also feel that it might do just the opposite. And as other activists are saying. So I think it's very important that we take a more informed decision here.
That's right. So Nandita, let's just try and understand as to what does the law really say as of now? What is the status of sex workers here?
As has been correctly said, sex work per se, giving services, sexual services yourself. I can sleep with my neighbor and take money. That's not illegal. However, you cannot run a brothel, you cannot solicit, and you cannot pimp on behalf of someone else. These things are illegal, and rightly so. Because if you make these things legal, you're actually making slavery legal. That another person can make money out of giving the body in labor of another person. What freedom does this other person have? Today, because these things are illegal, I in my own home, if I choose to sleep with people and take money or gifts or this or that, I'm absolutely free to do it. It's not illegal. It is only when it's turning into a trade where other people live off my activity, then to say that your hours will be regulated. How do you regulate the hours in this industry? That you work for 8 hours. Can a human being actually have sex non-stop for 8 hours? What are the emotional issues? What are the mental issues? This is an absolutely illegal, inhuman, unconceivable thing all over the world, where brothels, where pimping, where soliciting has been legalized. All women involved in sex work, even in Amsterdam, are addicted to drugs, because this is not equivalent to selling your mind or selling your physical labor, which is not so intimate and so violative. Secondly, Is there any control on the clientele? Is the guy a drunk? Is he a sadist? Has he got any sort of venereal disease? What is this regulation of work hours? You know, what kind of treatment are they meting out? It is simply saying that we are going to legalize the slavery of women who have nothing else to survive on except becoming slaves. So why don't we legalize the sale of organs? Why don't we legalize child labor? Why don't we legalize bonded labor? The rationale and the argument for everything is the same. The poor don't have an option. So I find this thing completely unacceptable, and if the chairman of the National Commission of Women has said this, she ought to resign because she is not fit to head the National Commission for Women.
So Rishikant, what do you say? You're representing Shakti Vahini here. So what is your stand on this? Do you think this is a very irresponsible statement that has come from the head?
Oh, certainly. Since the National, as the chairperson of the National Commission for Women, she shouldn't have said this. And the moment she said this, the reaction of activists like us, we raised our issues that so many young girls are already missing in our country. Where are they? And maximum of them are turning into the brothels. When we go into the rescue operation, we see we always break the wall, and from inside the wall all those young girls come up. Right. And they, when we talk to those young girls, they said that this is an organized racket. The organized racketeers have lured them for the purpose of work, and then they put into these brothels. So I completely oppose the chairperson of the National Commission for Women, what she has said, and I respect my other panelists, how they have said that she should resign immediately, because women in India are not there to sell their bodies. Women in India are here to be respected and work along with men, and we should show a respect to our women, not to sell their bodies in brothels.
So Vijaya, when she says that trafficking is going to come down, that no more the girls are not going to be trafficked anymore because this is going to be a regulated kind of a work. So do you really think that could happen here in this country?
Absolutely not. I think one of the realities of India is that we have the highest incidence of human trafficking. And it's not just inside the country, it's from outside the country too. So I think that's flourishing, and not just in sex trade. It's all over. It's also child labor. I think that's a very important point.
Correct.
It's there. Trafficking is all over. But I think one of the important things to realize is, yes, there might be women there by their choice who are doing sex trade, and that's something that we need to understand, and they are not necessarily they have been trafficked. But studies have proven, and lots of studies have been done. I personally did a UNDP study in 2000 along with an organization called STOP, and it was found out that almost 70% to 80% of the girls had been trafficked into the trade, and this was definitely not the first choice that they were making. But having said that, even if we recognize that, you know, legalizing it will probably bring down the trafficking incidents, I do not see how. I mean, if they are going to bring about changes in the Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act, the first thing they need to look is how this particular act has been made. It uses the word immoral. I think the first is, it's not about morality that we are discussing here. We are talking about hazards to the young people who are trapped there. So in that case, how is that going to help, that legalizing this will actually bring them to the forefront? It's not going to happen. And the other most important thing to note is that in sex trade, there is always a premium for younger people, for younger women, because there are some kinds of superstitions and myths that it says that having sex with a virgin is going to cure you of all kinds of venereal diseases, and there are all such ideas that perpetuate, and they have been perpetuating for a very long time. So how are you going to stop that? I think a social legislation has to take all of this into consideration. Every culture has a particular way in which it looks at sex and sexuality. If you are going to legalize sex trade, have you even, I don't think our country has been sitting down and talking. You do not want sex education in classrooms.
Exactly.
And yet you want to have legalizing of sex trade. I think there needs to be a certain kind of a discussion around these contradictions and contestations that exist in this kind of a challenging time. I think it's very important that we see how we are looking at women and girls in this country. So if you are going to bring about sex education classes, you allow young people to have sex whenever and wherever they want to, and you need to debunk this institution of marriage. Go ahead and legalize sex trade. But you need to do all of that. You can't just begin with legalizing sex trade, because the poor woman is the one that you want to catch and then probably, you know, use that to bring about tourism. So if that is the option that we are left with, I don't think we have much to say here. So trafficking will definitely increase. I do not see it coming down.
So what do you think, Nandita? Do you think traffic is going to increase? And I think that's a good example she gave, that in a country where sex education becomes such a big issue in so many states, and here we are talking of legalizing the sex trade.
I think she's made some very fundamental points, that there are certain women who we consider immoral, but on the peripheries of our society, we don't mind if they are handling the violence of disturbed men, you know. So as long as we moral good women can sit in our homes safely. And you know, we have such a sort of negative view of sex, but this is not about sexuality at all.
True.
Prostitution is about power, that I can pay to consume your body. It is transforming an individual into a commodity. So I am quite confident that trafficking will increase. Child prostitution will increase, because our country has shown from the time of the Bhopal gas tragedy that we do not have independent and honest regulators. That is the sad reality. Child labor is illegal, but in the best of localities, even in the capital city, in South Delhi, every second house has a child servant. So, I mean, if you can't regulate something that is so visible like child labor, how are you going to be regulating the trafficking in sex work, you know? Now I'm coming to the second issue of this thing of consent. Why is the National Commission for Women not pushing for a bill on land reform, that agricultural land to be given to women? Why is the National Commission for Women not arguing for a increased widow's pension? So a lady who's widowed is not, you know, kicked out of the home and forced into this. Why do rural courts not have protection officers to actualize, you know, the Domestic Violence Act? That would end trafficking, because, I mean, sir will be better able because he's got the actual grassroots experience, but whatever little experience I have, I can say confidently the only women who get trafficked are the women who have nobody to protect them. They don't have fathers, their husbands have died, they've been destituted by their sons, they've been tricked by a boyfriend or a trafficker. And this is world over, whether it's Eastern Europe, whether it's Thailand, whether it's India. So the National Commission for Women should be working on issues which are structural and should be advising the government to strengthen women economically and socially, rather than saying that, look, we can't do that. Anyway, they are poor and marginalized. So, you know, let us at least benefit from this. By next they'll say, let's tax the income of sex workers. Whereas the multi-millionaires of our country can hide their money in Switzerland, a lady who's a destitute and has to sell her body will next be taxed, because now it's a legitimate business. So this is so perverse. It's so perverse that I feel nauseated even discussing this topic.
So Rishikant, what do you say here? Because she's right, you know, Domestic Violence Act, that has to be taken into consideration. We know the kind of position that women are in this country, and then to come up and say something like this.
I mean, this is what I correctly accept what she's saying, that NCW should work on the upliftment of women and take up all those laws which really the women wants now in India. But taking this case, this issue immediately as soon as she has joined, I think basically she is from the HIV/AIDS sector. That is why her mindset is that. But otherwise, I work on HIV/AIDS also in the red light area. I do go and rescue women. But believe me, every girl whom we rescue, every girl whom we give condoms, they say that we have been tricked by the people. We have been duped back home in our, somebody has come, duped us, told us that she'll get job in Delhi.
Or for jobs.
This is completely organized racket. And I should question the NCW chairperson that how is she should tackle the issues of, you know, this organized racket. She openly says that organized rackets will go down. How will it go down? Because, you know, the people in the villages are people who targets these girls, targets the family, vulnerable family. I accept what she says, that there might be some families whose father has died, mother has. Every women in the red light area say that they don't have a father. They come here and somebody duped us. They said that jhadu pocha ka kaam lagane ke liye we were brought here.
And they were
this
sent
is
here.
that, and you know, especially in terms of Delhi, the red light area is just behind the New Delhi railway station immediately, and there are whole racketeers. The auto walas are racketeers there, the rickshaw walas are racketeers. They immediately put those girls there in the brothels. There are various other subsectors which we know, we keep on raiding those places, especially in South Delhi, where immediately the girls are given something in West Bengal to drink, and they are by within 24 hours their mind goes, you know, a sleeping mode, and then whatever the trafficker will say, they will do it. They are brought here in Delhi, and they are pushed into within 24 hours in the red light area.
Well, so that's the gory state of the girls in our country, and that's how they are really trafficked. Well, here I would like to mention that even though Lalitha Kumaramangalam may have come with a statement like this, given an interview in the Hindu, but interestingly, they do not have consensus on this issue, even in the NCW, as I've spoken to the other members. Well, it's time for us to slip into a break. When we come back, we'll be taking this forward. So don't go away, as we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are talking about the fact whether sex trade should be legalized in India, as the chairperson of the NCW wants. Well, folks, if you have a stand on this issue, if you want to say anything, all you'll have to do is pick up your phone and reach us at 1800115314 or 23035420. Just remember that today we are asking whether sex trade should be legalized in India in the true sense of the term. Now, coming to you, Bijaya, now suppose if this really goes the way she wants it legalized and all that. So, as somebody was saying during the break, that if that happens, then maybe we'll have very young girls actually opting for an option like this. And what would really happen, even they wouldn't really know what they're going.
I do not know if young girls will themselves go and do it, but definitely the nexus between gender discrimination and poverty is very clear here. And now there will be the nexus with the legal market. So there is going to be that kind of a Karwa Chauth capitalism happening here also, that you are going to just push women into this trade by making it seem like this is something that traditionally India used to do. We have this very beautiful culture of beautiful women offering you services. But what one is afraid of, that it might turn into a Thailand, because already there's a lot of child prostitution in Goa and in Kerala. And it draws in a lot of international tourism for that matter. So now we are going to put up these pictures, and the age of consent and really knowing the age of a young Indian girl, it's going to be very difficult. Correct. Because you can prove it to be 18 or the consent age or whatever it is, and then put them in the trade. The other thing that was discussed also earlier, and I think it's a very important point, is that the people who are going to benefit from it are going to be the madams and the pimps. And also, will it get rid of corruption? Will it get rid of the police brutality that they face? Will it get them actually health services? I doubt if they are going to do. Will it really get them education? If they are going to be educated and they are going to be empowered, do you think this is what they are going to choose to do? So if these are the questions we are not going to ask, and we have not even consulted with all the sex workers, then how can we really understand this, that these policies or these principles that she's bringing in, they are going to work? I do not think they are going to work unless we consult with them. Of course, there is a need to decriminalize sex work.
True.
Of the sex person, of the individual woman who is doing sex work, decriminalize it. The legalization of the sex trade actually means legalization of the brothel owners, the power holders for that matter, and also bringing in to the nexus the police and the rest of the even sex workers are asking the same question. What do you mean by legalization?
True.
We are already legal, we are operating in this semi-legal field. I think the way sex trade is being pushed here, it is also in the same way that commercial surrogacy is being pushed here. We are ready for women to rent rent out their wombs, to rent out their vaginas. I think that's the idea, that women should rent out whatever they have, because anyway they should not use their minds.
Yeah, Nandita, do you want to build on what she said?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add, not forget use their mind. We don't want to give women resources. We don't want to share economic resources with the poor, but we want them to be consumers. So they have to sell something to be able to buy the bags and the lipsticks and the consumer products, which the foreign investments are coming to India from. So when you don't want to give somebody land, you don't want to give them education, you don't want to give them health care, what do they sell to have a purchasing power? The only thing they have to sell is their bodies. So the next step is, you will even legalize organ donation. Because if I'm a poor person, I have nothing else, why shouldn't I sell my kidney to a rich person? If I can sell my body, why not my kidney? Why not my heart? Why not one eye? I mean, a person can live his life with one eye also. So are the bodies and the souls of the poor going to be the harvest for the rich? Is it as easy now to just walk into a shop and buy a handbag, or buy a gobi, or just buy a woman, or buy a human part? So there is a great philosophical vacuum in this whole debate, and this debate is unfortunately being pushed by the HIV lobby, whose only concern is keep the sex worker's body healthy, so that the male client who is sort of at the top of the work thing, he remains healthy. The disease should not spread. But what about my mind? What about my emotional health? What about my dreams and aspirations? That has to be dealt with at a later stage. So this is a most, I think, unfortunate way of looking at this whole issue, and this is a debate that the women's movement and the HIV movement have been having for the past 15 years. It's just that because HIV affects a lot of powerful people, they have a lot more money, whereas the women's movement does not have the lobbying power and the money that the HIV movement has. That is where this push to legalize the business of sex work has come from. Not the sex worker is just one little tool in this whole business, That is where this whole impetus
there's more than meets the eye.
Yes,
actually.
much more. There's something else that is pushing this whole thing and making it seem like it's all for the benefit of that woman who is otherwise optionless. And where it comes to respect, etc., are they saying that in every residential area we can have a brothel? Are they saying that I can, rent the house next to the chairman of the National Commission for Women and run a brothel? No, no. This permit will be only given in some obscure corner.
Correct.
So that the rest of society can remain pure and continue its life.
Well, we have a viewer with us. This is Adnan from Kanpur. So let's see what Adnan has to say. So Adnan, are you there with me? Well, we seem to have lost Adnan for a while. So, do you also think, Rishikant, that the agenda is something else, and this is not really, there's much more that meets the eye?
Certainly, the agenda is something else, and they want to organize themselves into more bigger way, bringing more and more young girls. I mean, tomorrow, if they legalize this trade, tomorrow you will find multinational companies going into the universities and college for equipment. There will be these pimps and brothel keepers going and saying, putting a banner that, okay, we are recruiting girls for prostitution. Can this happen in India? No. As men, I'm against this. And as a person who has saved so many girls, I want to become the voice of those girls who cannot come to your studio and raise those voice. What she has faced, 10 to 12 men a day. I raise a question to the national, shame on you, to the National Commission for Women Chairperson.
Okay, now Vijay, what happens to those comparisons that they make, say, whether it's Amsterdam or some other countries where it is legalized, and the people out there say that because it is legalized, so the women in the area are actually quite safe from the pervert sex that otherwise men would be really indulging in, and the rape rates also in those countries, I'm told, are much lower than the others. If you know anything about that,
I think that's really simplifying the whole complex story of sexual violence and abuse. And also the complete, I think one needs to look at intersectionalities in India. India is a unique country. and take a look at class, caste, gender, all the kind of communal, and also our poverty. I think social legislation, when it evolves, it has to evolve from the culture of that land. I think we keep harping on culture in all other points, and then suddenly when it comes to sex trade, we are comparing ourselves with Germany, Amsterdam and the rest of the country, world. So I think it's very important that we evolve our own systems, and our own systems have to evolve from within our own understandings of how women's bodies have been viewed here. I think it is a country where there is highest incidence of maternal mortality. It's a country where there is sex selective abortion. Girls are not even allowed to be born. There is great violence on the streets. So are you going to say, and that is exactly the story that they say, that okay, you're killing off one daughter and then you go and buy one for marriage, and then there is sexual slavery there also. So what is the kind of equality that you're really going to bring in through this? So are you going to say that just because my daughter should not be raped, because I am this upper class, elite class, my daughter should not be raped, therefore I should offer sex trade for all those pervert men who are out there to get my daughter? Let me tell you, that's also not going to happen. Rape again is a power game. It is also about establishing certain kind of a power in the streets. It is also about denying women the right to use public spaces. It is also a hostility against those women who have managed to make the street their own. So I don't think rape, and it is not as if prostitutes are not raped or sex workers are not raped. So I think this whole understanding of rape and violence, because a lot of the story is doing back and forth, that a lot of this violence against women is going to stop if we legalize sex trade. But the point is, those men are not only going there and raping the sex worker and her daughter, they're also coming out and raping their own wives and daughters, and also raping the. So stop the rapists and question the demand side of it. That's never happened. There is no recognition of male prostitution yet.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just stop here for a moment as we have Pankaj with us from Maharashtra. So Pankaj, are you there with me?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome to the show and kindly go ahead.
हाँ, मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहता हूँ, और ये जो कदम है ये स्वागत योग्य है। इस प्रकार से मैं इसको देख रहा हूँ कि जो समाज में हमारे भारतवर्ष में जो सती प्रथा या सती नाम से भी कुछ हमें महिलाओं को बड़े सम्मानित दृष्टि से देखते हैं, वो दृष्टि खराब हो चुकी है। आज वो दृष्टि को रिवाइव करने के लिए मैं चाहता हूं कि कौन है सती, और ये समाज चाहता है सती जैसे रहने वाले कौन है वो औरत। और हमें ये भी जानना चाहते हैं कि जो वेश्याएं वो डिस्टिंग्विश होना चाहिए, उनका एक जो मत है और वो क्यों ऐसे करना चाहते हैं, और सरकार की दृष्टि से जो उनको प्रोटेक्शन भी मिलना चाहिए वो भी मिलना जरूरी है। मैं नहीं मानता हूं कि समाज में जो ये वेश्यावृत्ति प्रोस्टिट्यूशन करने वाली औरतें हैं वो सिर्फ पैसा के लिए करती हैं। कुछ ऐसे महिला हैं वो शौक से करना चाहती है, और ये शुड बी वेलकम फॉर ऑल। और ये हमें चाहते हैं जो शौक से करना चाहते हैं उनकी शौक पूरी भी होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि हम लोग आजादी हिंदुस्तान में रह रहे हैं, इसलिए उनकी शौक पूरी होनी चाहिए और उनको प्रोटेक्शन मिलनी चाहिए। और उनको शिक्षा भी मिलनी चाहिए, क्योंकि अभी मिक्स हो गई है, ये जो एक प्रकार की जो एक रोग फैल रही है वो।
Thank you so much, Pankaj, for that point of view, and I'll be getting the responses. I'll be getting the responses of my panelists, but right now we'll have to slip into a break. When we come back, the responses are going to be right here. So don't go away, as we'll all see you on the other side. Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are asking whether sex trade should be legalized in India. Well, so we had with us Mr. Pankaj from Maharashtra, and I would want my panelists to respond to him one by one, as he said that this is a welcome move and we should go ahead with it. Nandita, you can go first.
मैं पंकज जी को समझाना चाहूँगी कि जो स्वेच्छा से ये इस वैश्या का नाम लेना शायद बहुत अच्छी बात नहीं होगी। हम इसको सेक्स वर्क कहते हैं, इसको हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं मैं नहीं जानती हूँ, लेकिन जो स्वेच्छा से इस काम में जुड़ा हुआ है उसके लिए कोई कानूनी प्रतिबंध आज भी नहीं है। शायद पंकज जी अपने उत्साह में ये समझ ना पाए हों कि सरकार इसको ट्रेड को लीगल करना चाहता है कि कोई किसी महिला का शरीर लेके उसमें धंधा करे, उस बात को कानूनी करना चाहता है। एक और बात मैं कहूंगी, जैसे पंकज जी जैसे लोग हैं जिनका दिमाग इतना खुला हुआ है, ये बहुत वेलकम चीज़ है, मेरा भी दिमाग इसमें बहुत खुला हुआ है। इनको एक पहला कदम लेना चाहिए और अपनी प्रॉपर्टी या अगर इनके पास कोई वेकेंट प्लॉट हो अपने कॉलोनी में, वहाँ पे लड़के और किसी सेक्स वर्कर को घर दिलाना चाहिए ताकि वो ऐसे अच्छे बुद्धिजीवी लोगों के एनवायरनमेंट में प्रोटेक्टेड रहे। और अगर कोई कस्टमर वगैरह उनको तंग करे तो पंकज जी जैसे बुद्धिजीवी लोग उनको सिक्योरिटी दे सके, क्योंकि ये गैर कानूनी काम नहीं है, सिर्फ धंधा गैर कानूनी।
So before I get your responses, we have another viewer with us. This is Ravi from West Bengal. So Ravi, are you there with me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome to the show and please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. I just wanted to share one thing. There must be some, a group will be there who can who can do a regular checkup in the prostitution area. Just because I have one experience. Earlier, a few of my friends who were staying in Delhi, they told me something that a few of girls were brought from West Bengal and saying that they will be given a job in Delhi. And I don't know how they were put into trafficking. And that girls were staying in these brothel areas. And many times they even have tried to escape from that place, but the local people used to stop them and not allowing to come out.
True.
Even police people were also there, but they were not able to come out. So what I request is that there must be some, schedule should be there, like weekly inspection or daily checking in the brothel areas to see that the girls who are working there, they are working by their own choice or they are being forced to do that.
Right. Ravi, thank you so much for joining in. And yes, the truth is that in spite of the police being there, because we know the kind of nexus that really goes on in this trade, and so I don't think really the escape can be such an easy route for them. Well, first let's get the response to Mr. Pankaj, then we'll talk about
देखिए, मैं पंकज जी को ये पूछना चाहता हूँ कि क्या वो अपनी बेटी को इस धंधे में डालना चाहेंगे अगर वो स्वेच्छा से करना चाहती है तो। ये उनके लिए बहुत बड़ा सवाल आ जाएगा कि आप बाप हैं और आपकी बेटी एक्सेप्ट करती है कि नहीं। वो कभी मैं पंकज जी से ये भी पूछना चाहता हूँ कि जिस आप महिला की बात कर रहे हैं, क्या आपने कभी वैसी महिलाओं को देखा है या कभी उनकी दुख दर्द को सुना है कि कौन लेके आया था, कौन ऑर्गेनाइज रैकेट जब वो 17, 18, 14, 15 साल की होगी तो उसको कौन लेके आया होगा ब्रॉथेल में, किस हालात में वो वहाँ पर पहुँच गई होगी, कौन ये रैकेट का नेक्सस का रैकेट जो इन्वॉल्व है वो कौन लोग हैं। पंकज जी को इस तरह की ओपन अपने सोफा में बैठ के घर में ऐसे स्टेटमेंट नहीं देना चाहिए। जब उनकी बेटी ये बोलेगी कि मैं 18 साल की हूं और ये धंधा करना चाहती हूं, तब मैं पंकज जी से पूछना चाहता हूं कि वो क्या करेंगे।
विजय, what do you want to say?
ये जो है पंकज जी जो बात कर रहे हैं वो बात जैसे इन्होंने कहा अपने सोफा से बोल रहे हैं, बट आई थिंक द लार्जर क्वेश्चन अबाउट हिज पोजीशन इज दैट दिस इज अ पोजीशन वेयर ही इज सेइंग दैट वीमेन शुड बी अवेलेबल एंड इफ दे आर डूइंग इट ऑन देयर चॉइस। लेकिन ये जो चॉइस की बात है इसको भी समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि किस दौरान उन्होंने वो चॉइस किया और किस तरह की उन्होंने चॉइस की। हाँ, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जो वीमेन चॉइसेस करते हैं सब सही हो. They can make some negative choices and they have to suffer the consequences if adult women are doing it. तो मुझे लगता है उनको ये समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि जिन औरतों के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं वो बहुत ही पीड़ित हैं और हम उन लोगों के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं जिनको ब्रॉथल ओनर्स और पिम्प्स इस तरह से कंट्रोल करते हैं कि उनके पास रिसोर्सेज पहुंचते नहीं हैं. जो आई थिंक ऋषिकांत कैन टॉक अ लिटिल मोर अबाउट दिस, बट आई थिंक द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग यहाँ जानना है कि उनको कोई बेच देता है और बेचने के बाद जो पैसा ब्रॉथल ओनर उनको देता है, that money that is being paid to the person who is selling them, वो पैसा फिर इन्हीं से लिया जाता है. तो इनके पास कभी कुछ भी रिसोर्सेस नहीं होते हैं. तो फिर अगर कोई रिसोर्सेस ही नहीं है, उनका बॉडी इस तरह से यूज हो रहा है, सो वेयर इज इट वर्क ऑल्सो? इट इज स्लेवरी. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे दे आर नॉट गेटिंग दोज रिसोर्सेस एंड लार्जली स्टडीज हैव शोन दैट जो जीबी रोड और कामाथीपुरा और इवन हैदराबाद में जब होता था महबूब की वॉट एवर दैट प्लेस वॉज देयर, तो वहाँ सारे एरिया एरियाज में यही देखा गया कि उनके पास कुछ अपने रिसोर्सेस नहीं थे, और वो भी आफ्टर 20 और 30 इयर्स इन ट्रेड। तो इन औरतों के बारे में बात करने से पहले
as it is they are marginalized, they have no, I mean,
so
they don't even know about their rights.
Ultimately it is only about men wanting women for sex and they should be available. फिर तो ये प्रॉब्लमैटिक है, क्योंकि हमने कभी भी अभी तक क्यों डिमांड है सेक्स ट्रेड का, उसको क्वेश्चन नहीं किया है। एंड आई थिंक इट्स टाइम दैट वी टॉक अबाउट द डिमांड साइड, वी आर ओनली टॉकिंग अबाउट द सप्लाई साइड।
I'll come back to you, Rishikant ji. We have another viewer, so Amit from Haryana. So Amit, are you there with me?
Yes ma'am.
Yeah, please go ahead very quickly.
सबसे पहले तो नमस्कार कहना चाहूँगा मैडम सभी को
जी।
मैं थोड़ी हिंदी में कंटिन्यू
जी जी जी।
हरियाणा में जैसे मैडम सेक्स रेशियो के बारे में पता काफी कम है, बहुत ज्यादा है। तो एक अगर मैं बेसिकली विलेजेस गांव में रहता हूँ, तो यहाँ पर जो देखने को मिल रहा है मैडम कि लड़कियां हैं नहीं, तो काफी अच्छे परिवार भी है, मतलब जिनके लड़कों की शादी नहीं हो रही, घर के अंदर 4 या 5 लड़के हैं, एक भी लड़के की शादी नहीं हुई है, वो भी इस मार्केट से मतलब कह सकते हैं इस ट्रेड से काफी फायदा उठा रहे हैं। वो किसी दलाल के कांटेक्ट में आते हैं और जैसे कि वहां से एक लेके आते हैं, वहां से किसी भी एक महिला को लेके आते हैं, वो घर के अंदर काफी अच्छे से काम करती हैं। और जब और गांव की जो महिलाएं भी उनके साथ बातचीत करते हैं, तो उनकी बातचीत से भी ये लगता है मैडम कि वो बताते हैं कि हमें घर वालों ने भेजा कहीं था और हमें पहुंचा दिया कहीं, हमारी फैमिली शायद पैसों की वजह से भी उनको भेजा। और सबसे अच्छी बात ये लगी मैडम कि उनकी सोच वहां रहने के बावजूद भी इतनी अच्छी कि वो यहाँ पर आकर काफी कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं, कोई भी काम दिया जाए उनको तो अच्छे से करते हैं वो, और मतलब किसी भी प्रकार की कोई दिक्कतें नहीं आती उनको। मेरा मानना ये है मैडम कि ये जो ट्रेड है, इस ट्रेड का यहाँ पर भी कह सकते हैं, मैडम ने जैसे कहा कि इसकी डिमांड किसकी वजह से, तो हो सकता है कि इस ट्रेड का अहम रोल रहा हो कहने का इस डिमांड के अंदर कि वहां से लेके आ रहे हैं, वो इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर, और जितनी बूस्ट आएगी यहाँ पर लड़कों की जो तादाद बढ़ती जाएगी, वहां से हो सकता है इस ट्रेड के अंदर भी बूस्ट आए।
और वहाँ हरियाणा में लड़कियों को मारा जाए उसके बारे में कोई
उसके बाद इनको खरीदा जाए,
उसके बाद खरीदा
जाए। बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट बताया है।
बहुत शर्म की बात है कि हम पहले तो बच्चियों को मार देते, पैदा ही नहीं करने देते, अब ये ओपनली बोल रहे हैं कि वहां बाहर से बंगाल से लड़कियां आती और वहां पर पूरे गांव को सेवा भी करती हैं और अच्छे से गांव वाले काम भी, वो आप उनको स्लेव में रख रहे हो। मैंने बहुत ऐसी बच्चियों को जो बंगाल, असम, झारखंड की लड़कियां जिनको हरियाणा में बेचा गया है, ऐसी बहुत लड़कियों को मैंने बचाया है। और उन लड़कियों को मैंने एक इंस्टेंस आपको बताता हूं कि मैंने एक लड़की, आसाम की लड़की थी, जब उसको बचाने गया, उसकी बहन जब मिली, 1 साल से मिल नहीं पाई थी, एक गांव में, जिंद के एक गांव में थी, जब उसने अपनी बहन से मिला तो उसने दौड़ के गई और पानी एकदम बाथरूम में गई, दोनों बहन एकदम से, वो लड़की जो जिसको बेचा गया था वो सिंदूर अपना उठा के फेंक दी, एकदम धो दी लेके, और उसको उसके बाद अपने बहन को लिपट गई, बोली मुझे घर जाना है, मुझे इन बदमाशों ने बेचा है। तो ये जो बात कह रहे हैं कि हरियाणा में आके लड़कियां रहती हैं, कोई हरियाणवी पुरुष बंगाल की लड़की से कैसे शादी कर लेता है? एक तो आप भाषा नहीं जानते हो, उनकी खाने की हैबिट्स दूसरी है, भात खाते हैं वो लोग, आप रोटी देते हो, इसीलिए लड़की वायलेंट हो सकता है। कुछ ऐसी लड़कियां अच्छी रह रही हों, कुछ परिवार को जरूरत है, क्योंकि आपने फीमेल फीटिसाइड, इन्फेंटिसाइड करा है, तो आज जब आपको जरूरत है तो आप वहां से उठा के ले आओ और बाद में इसको लीगलाइज कर दो।
राइट, यस, या नंदिता।
मैं बहुत खुश हूँ कि ये जिन कॉलर ने फ़ोन किया, मैम ने अभी यही मुद्दा उठाया था कि कहीं ना कहीं हमें इस बात को देखना पड़ेगा कि सेक्स वर्कर्स की डिमांड क्यों है, क्योंकि हमारा समाज महिलाओं को दो नजरों से देखता है। जैसे पंकज जी ने कहा, सती, कि आप किसी से शादी करते हैं तो आपके पति का हक है, एक तरह से इट इज मैरिटल प्रोस्टिट्यूशन, दैट आपको अपने हस्बैंड के कपड़े धोने, बर्तन धोने, झाड़ू लगाना है और उसके साथ सोना है और उसको बच्चे देने हैं। दूसरा है, जो महिला निचली श्रेणी की है या आपके समाज की नहीं है, उसको आप शादी का दर्जा नहीं देते, लेकिन आप उनसे वही सब काम ले लेते हैं, चाहे वो आपके घर में काम करने वाली नौकर हो या किसी को, जैसे इन्हें हरियाणा के गांव में ये लोगों को ले रहे हैं। तो कहीं यहाँ पे एक बहुत ही फाउंडेशनल मुद्दा आता है कि महिलाओं की हमारे देश में इज्जत नहीं है।
That's true.
उनको सती का स्टेटस देके, इवन ये जो गांव की लेडीज हैं जो इनको अच्छी तरह बात करती हैं, वो अपने आप को कहीं इनसे ऊंचा समझती होंगी, जबकि वैल्यू में वो उतनी ही नीचे हैं। उनके पास ना लैंड राइट है, उनके पास ना कोई से है। अगर उनकी बेटी को ऑनर किलिंग में मार दिया जाता है।
Sometimes these women are made to live in the stables, you know, in the mangers. That's the reality of it, actually. Well, folks, we'll have to slip into a break, but before that, we have with us Ram from Delhi. So, Ram, if you're there with me, very quickly tell me what is it that you would want to share.
हाँ, नमस्कार। ऐसे है कि कोई लड़की अगर अपनी मर्जी से कुछ करना चाहती है और आदमी भी उसके लिए तैयार है और उसकी जरूरतें दोनों की पूरी होती हैं और इसमें से किसी को कोई नुकसान भी नहीं होता, तो फिर इसमें क्या हर्ज है?
You mean to say sex with consent?
जिसकी इंटेंशन कोई खराब हो रही है इस काम के लिए, वो इस जो करना चाहती है उसके पास जा सकता है, समाज में बुराई कम होगी।
अच्छा, ऐसा आपका मानना है? ओके।
बुरा काम है तो करे क्यों? और अगर अच्छा काम है तो दूसरे आदमी जो महिलाएं हैं वो जरूरत से वहां फंसी हुई है और उसकी मजबूरी का फायदा उठा के आप बुरा काम कर रहे हो, तो इसमें महिला का क्या फायदा हुआ?
और कोई भी महिला कभी भी किसी 10-12 पुरुष के साथ सोएगी नहीं।
Absolutely, I think that's. But I think well, we'll come back to this because it's time for us to slip into yet another break. When we come back, I'll have all the 3 panelists respond. So don't go away, as I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are asking whether sex trade should be legalized in India, as that is what the NCW chief has really wanted. Well, folks, if you have a question, do reach us right now, and the lines are open, and the numbers are 1800115314 and 23035420. Having said that, we are joined by a NACO activist. His name is Hari Singh from Delhi. So, Hari Singh, if you can hear me, welcome to Gender Discourse.
Okay, thank you. My name is Hari Singh. I am working as counselor at NACO, National AIDS Control Organization.
Right.
And I am also living with HIV last 20 years. And I am on second line ART treatment. तो मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि जो सेक्स रेगुलाइजेशन है, तो इसके बारे में एक तो सेक्स एजुकेशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। जब हमें 18 और 21 साल में वोट देने का अधिकार है, तो हमें सेक्स एजुकेशन, सेक्स और सेक्सुअलिटी के बारे में ये कॉलेज लाइफ में हमें पता लग जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि इस एज के बाद एक बच्चों की शादी भी होती है। तो ये एजुकेशन रिफॉर्म बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। एंड द सेकंड, सेक्स एजुकेशन एंड सेक्सुअलिटी एजुकेशन, एक बालिग को जिसकी शादी होने वाली हो उसका अधिकार है कि उसको वो एजुकेशन दी जाए। सेकेंड थिंग, कंडोम प्रमोशन, कंडोम प्रमोशन टू फीमेल सेक्स वर्कर उसको जरूर मिलनी चाहिए, और जो HIV पॉजिटिव है उनको जरूर मिलना चाहिए, क्योंकि तभी हम इसके माध्यम से जो HIV केसेस है उनको रिड्यूस कर पाएंगे। और दूसरा, सेक्स जस्ट लाइक फूड, हम सेक्स भी एक भूख की तरह
so no are you so what you are saying is that you are all for it, this move that is really being talked about? Yes. So okay, thank you so much for joining in. Well, before you comment on him, Bijay, I think you wanted to say something to the gentleman from Haryana, Amit.
First, Amit's intervention here, he said कि ये बहुत अच्छी बात है कि ये औरतें आ जाती हैं और हमारी तो लड़कियां कम हो गई हैं, लेकिन लड़कियां क्यों कम हो गई?
That's the question.
तो आपने लड़कियों को जब you are not even allowing them to be born,
correct,
जन्म देने नहीं दे रहे हो, क्योंकि आप लड़कियों को सोचते ही नहीं हो कि वो आपके बराबर के हैं, आप उनको बोझ समझते हो, लड़कियों को बोझ समझते हो, और गाय से भी कम प्राइस से आप लड़कियों को खरीदते हो, फिर उनको कहते हो बहुत अच्छे हैं। अच्छे हैं का क्या मतलब? कि हमारा काम कर रहे हैं। सो दैट वेरी क्लियरली शोज दैट द डिमांड साइड इज रियली नॉट व्यूइंग इट एज एन इक्वालिटी इशू, and the equality and the empowerment angle that the chairperson of the NCW is selling us has been, I think, completely debunked by this particular caller. I think Amit ने बड़े clearly बोल दिया है कि ये demand किस लिए है. And that is something that we need to see, that women in India are seen almost like utility goods. That they are needed for a particular kind of thing. They are not needed to be daughters in the house. So you kill your daughter, or you terminate your daughters, or you whatever. I mean, you just get rid of your daughters, and then you buy a bride, and you then treat that particular person as a sex slave. तो ये story है, और इसके अंदर आप legalize करना चाहते हो उस trade को जहाँ लोग किसी को बेच रहे हैं. So I think that's the story that needs to be clear. I think the other point that the NACO person raised is sexuality education. I think it's a very important move, and I think right at the beginning I did say that where is sex education in schools? But are we really looking at that? I think right now we are going to be looking at the syllabus in a completely different way when it comes to school. I don't think 18 years. I think you should need to start right from the beginning. जब बच्चों के साथ child sexual abuse हो रही है. So I think you need to look at child sexual abuse. So it has to begin right from nursery onwards that you talk about sex and sexuality. So that's a very important point. As for condom promotion, I think we have to be very clear as to why we want condom promotion, so that they do not, and I think you put it very well, that so that they do not, kind of give the disease to the husbands of the houses. But the point is, it is the men who spread HIV. It's not the women. Women actually are far more vulnerable to getting it. So the sex worker does not get the disease by herself. She gets it from the man. The man gives it to her, he gives it to his wife and to his multiple partners and all the women he's raping. So I think here it's very important that condom promotion really needs to hit it where it really hurts, which is that it has to look at male responsibility, and that hasn't really been built into our system at all. So we can't just go around giving condoms to women who really have very little bargaining and negotiating powers with their clients, not even with their husbands. Forget the clients.
Forget the clients, that's right. Well, there's another viewer with us. This is Rakesh Bakshi from Chandigarh. So Rakesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
जी हाँ, मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा
जी,
ये बेसिकली एक लॉ एंड ऑर्डर प्रॉब्लम है. लॉ एंड ऑर्डर प्रॉब्लम है बेसिकली बिकॉज इसमें दो चीजें हैं. एक तो वॉलंटियर सेक्स वर्कर्स हैं जो इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे इन्वॉल्व होंगे, उन्हें छोड़ दीजिए. एक दूसरा यहाँ पे इस सेक्स रैकेट फोर्सिबल जो पूरा रैकेट है जिसमें एक ने बेचा है किसी नाबालिग लड़की को, उसके बाद उसे नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स बेचा जाता है, फिर फोर्सिबली धंधे में रखा जाता है. ये पूरे रैकेट में जितने लोग इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, इन सबके लिए मृत्युदंड होना चाहिए भारत में. तभी ये रुक सकता है, अदरवाइज रुकेगा नहीं. अगर लीगलाइज भी करना है तो वॉलंटियर सेक्स वर्कर जो इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे है उसे कर दीजिए, वो ठीक है. लेकिन ये पूरा रैकेट को लीगलाइज करने का तो सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता.
Right. Thank you so much for joining in. Nandita, you can comment on this.
Yeah, just summarizing what everyone has said and what I feel, and I'll say it in Hindi because काफी viewers हिंदी में बोल रहे हैं. जिस समाज में आप एक महिला की आज़ाद सेक्सुअलिटी या आज़ाद रूप से किसी को प्यार करना या किसी को चाहना उसको बुरी बात, गंदी बात, नॉन इज्जतदार बात माना जाता है, और उसी समाज में एक महिला को बेचना, खरीदना एक अच्छी बात और एक कानूनी बात माना जाता है, वो समाज ही इतना घिनौना है कि उस समाज में कोई कानून बने या ना बने कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता. एंड जो लास्ट कॉलर ने कहा है वो सही कहा है कि ये एक लॉ एंड ऑर्डर प्रॉब्लम है और ट्रैफिकिंग आप रोक सकते हो, पर जहां आपकी सोच ही इतनी घनौनी है कि आप महिलाओं की सेक्सुअल आज़ादी चाहते ही नहीं हो. अगर कोई लड़की अपने मर्जी से प्यार करे तो आप उसको गंदा कहते हो, लेकिन अगर कोई लड़का सेक्स ट्रेड में जाए या कोई महिला सेक्स ट्रेड चलाए तो वो एक समाज सेवा कर रही है. तो ये एक घिनौना समाज है और ये दुख की बात है कि हम इस समाज के हिस्सेदार हैं. मैं इस समाज को नकारती हूँ, दुत्कारती हूँ और ऐसे समाज पर मैं थूकती हूँ जहाँ पे इस तरह की दोगली सोच है. और जहाँ तक ये बात है कि सेक्स वर्कर्स की हेल्थ का, हमारे देश में गरीब लोगों की हेल्थ का कोई ट्रीटमेंट ही नहीं है. मध्य प्रदेश में, उड़ीसा में लोग सिर्फ यूट्रस प्रोलैप्स जो कि एक छोटा सा सर्जरी है, उसके कारण वो सालों साल इतनी बुरी दर्द में, कष्ट में घूमते हैं. आप उनको इलाज नहीं दोगे, लेकिन जो सेक्स वर्कर है ताकि वो HIV ना फैलाए, आप उसको बेस्ट ऑफ इलाज दोगे हर हॉस्पिटल में. तो आप हर महिला को ये कह रहे हो कि भाई आप सेक्स ट्रेड में आइए, क्योंकि अगर आप अमीर आदमी को सर्विस देंगे तो आपकी सेहत का ख्याल रखा जाएगा. अगर आप आज़ाद रहना चाहेंगे तो समाज आपको दुत्कारेगा. इसमें कोई दूसरी बात ही नहीं है. और जो लोग इस घिनौने हिपोक्रिटिकल समाज का हिस्सा रहना चाहते हैं, then the shame be on them.
So, Rishikant, what do you want to say at the end now? I mean,
we want to immediately break this organized racket because who are procuring these girls, we have to notify them and bring them in public. And first of all, and the second thing is that we also must collectively protest the NCW chairperson's statement that come what may, we will never allow this country to be legalized in this in sex trade, because it's completely organized. More and more young girls will come, and it will certainly create more vulnerability, not only vulnerability to the young girls in the city, but also in the rural background, because maximum of them are especially school dropouts girls who may be kidnapped. Yes. They don't understand the reality and the whole organized racket. I categorically put the shame on the NCW chairperson in telling this, in coming out with this statement. And also in last I would like to say that we must break this organized racket.
Right. So, Vijaya, what would you want to say here now?
I would say that
because
definitely
this debate is now going to generate, I mean, further debates, and let's see what action would be taken.
Yeah, I think definitely those who are already in that work, they should be decriminalized. They should not be seen as criminals.
Correct.
Of course, pimps and brothel owners have to be put under the radar, and that's for sure. And traffickers definitely should be tracked, and the police corruption needs to be looked at. I think the larger point for the NCW chairperson right now, if she's really interested in bringing about a change, is to visit those brothels, is to have larger consultations with activists who are here, right here on the panel, some of them, talk to them and develop a consensual kind of a framework and then move forward. But I think the question around women's body and women's rights cannot just be about sex trade.
Yes. Correct.
I think we have to start from the beginning, which is what about their stomachs? I think women do not have enough to eat. They are the ones to eat last and eat least. I think these are the questions that need to be talked by the NCW chairperson. Then she can come to sex trade. She can't just jump the gun and talk about sex trade right from the beginning. So I think that's
right.
And you know, Supreme Court is already keeping a watch on the whole issue, and they have told that rehabilitation is one of the key agenda. Even Supreme Court is tackling this issue, and they have said that bringing more and more agencies like Kapat in and telling these girls that if you want to come out, we are here, we will give you training, not silai kadai. They are trying to give more and more skill development trainings to these girls.
Right. So at the end, what would be your comments, Nandita? Very quickly.
Yeah, my comment would only be this, taking from what the earlier speakers have said, that the issue of a woman's sexual autonomy and a society's sexual maturity has to be dealt with structurally and holistically, and that is what the National Commission for Women has been set up. It's a women's think tank.
Right.
It cannot react in this manner, to if your stomach is upset and your face is covered with pimples, you can't just be putting Clarisil. You have to be eating the right diet. So the sexual maturity of the society will on its own deal with issues from honor killing to female feticide to sex trafficking. But no one wants to take on that issue.
Absolutely. Well, since now we are running short of time, I'd like to say thank you to all three of you for coming today and being a part of this debate. Well, folks, I really wish that we had a representative from the NCW today, because if their stand could be clearer, then this debate would be more tangible, I'm sure. But at the end, all I can say is that yes, we need to first look at the women holistically. That is, first, female feticide is something that we need to look at. We need to look at the education of the women. We need to look at their health issues. Only then can we actually talk about legalizing the sex trade as it is being talked about, because this is not something as it seems on the surface, because as it has been established that there's a lot more that really meets the eye. So thank you so much for joining in. Join me next week when we'll be taking up another issue on another gender issue. Till then, this is Lotty Alaric saying goodbye, and take very good care of yourselves.